Man, let's just get straight to it. Bruce Lee didn't just change martial arts, he dropped a hydrogen bomb on the whole thing. For generations, people were locked into these ancient, rigid systems. They were told, this is the way. This is how the Grandmaster did it 500 years ago. You will not deviate. Kata, forms, blind obedience to tradition. It was beautiful, sure, it was disciplined, but was it effective in a real life or death street fight? That question wasn't being asked out loud. It was sacred, untouchable. You just didn't question it. If you're still watching at this point, smash that like button to show your support. Then this dude from Hong Kong shows up. He's got this insane charisma, a physique that looks like it was carved from granite, and a speed that seems to defy the laws of physics. He took one look at the landscape of martial arts in America, all these dojos with their colored belts, their choreographed routines, and he called nonsense, ceremony, LARPing, not a lot of genuine functional combat skill. He wasn't trying to be disrespectful, he was trying to be honest. And that honesty felt like a sledgehammer to the glass house that traditional martial arts had become. He basically told everyone that their treasured family heirlooms were fake. Imagine the guts that takes. You're telling people who have dedicated their entire lives to mastering a specific style, karate, kung fu, you name it, that what they're doing is a classical mess. The foundations began to crack under the pressure of one simple, brutal question. But does it work? So, where did this guy come from? He started training in Hong Kong with Wing Chun under Ip Man, young Bruce on the wooden dummy. Wing Chun is known for its directness. It's known for its centerline theory and for simultaneous blocking and striking. It's a close quarter system, and it gave him a solid base. But even then, you could see the seeds of his future thinking. He was a sponge, but he was also a critic. When he came to America, he was exposed to a whole new world of fighting. Boxers, wrestlers, fencers, street fighters. He realized Wing Chun had limitations. What if the fight went to the ground? What if the guy was a bigger, stronger boxer with a killer jab? These weren't hypothetical questions. He was obsessed with finding answers. This led to his private fight with Wong Jack Man. The story is controversial, but the outcome for Lee was a profound realization. The fight took too long. He felt his traditional training had failed him. This experience was a catalyst. It solidified his belief no single style had all the answers. He saw traditional systems as prisons. They trapped people in a dogma, a rigid set of rules. He saw masters preserving purity over real application, teaching students to fight only other students of the same style. It became a closed loop, an echo chamber. Techniques that looked cool but would get you destroyed in a real confrontation. He called it dry land swimming. You'll drown the second you hit the water. His critique was ruthless and direct. Traditional martial arts were bound by style, bound by patterns, bound by a false sense of security. They encouraged a one-size-fits-all approach. A tall man shouldn't fight like a short man. A fast man shouldn't fight like a strong man. Lee believed combat was alive, dynamic, and ever-changing. Out of this fire of criticism, Bruce Lee forged his own path. He didn't just tear things down, he built something new. And that something was Jeet Kune Do, or JKD. Now, it's crucial to understand what JKD is, and more importantly, what it isn't. Lee himself said it's not a style. It's a philosophy, a framework for personal liberation in combat. The name itself, the way of the intercepting fist, gives you the core idea. Don't wait for your opponent to complete their attack and then block it. Intercept it. Meet force with efficient, direct, and brutal simplicity. Cut the middleman. The first pillar of this philosophy is efficiency. Why use a fancy spinning 5-part block when a simple parry will do? Why throw a complex combination when a single powerful strike to a vital target will end the fight? Lee was all about the economy of motion. He stripped away all the non-essentials, the flowery mess. He wanted to get from point A to point B, the straightest line possible. Focus on the simplest, most direct tools, the straight lead punch, the side kick, the finger jab. It's about maximum damage with minimum effort. The second pillar is adaptability. Be water, my friend. Water can flow or it can crash. It adapts. If your opponent is a grappler, adapt. Use footwork, keep distance, strike. If they're a boxer, adapt. Use kicks, change levels, intercept the jab. JKD is about having a toolbox full of the right tools and the intelligence to choose. Finally, the third pillar, breaking away from dogma. This scared the traditionalists. Absorb what is useful. Discard what is useless. Add what is specifically your own. This was heresy. It made the student the ultimate authority. Cross-train, boxing, cross-train, wrestling, cross-train, fencing, cross-train, savate. Create your own personal expression, not a carbon copy. A radical shift from art to the individual. You can imagine how well this went over with the establishment. The traditional martial arts community in the 1960s was built on hierarchy, lineage, and secrecy. Your worth as a martial artist was tied directly to your teacher and the pure style you inherited. It was a business model, too. You had these grandmasters who held the keys to the kingdom, the sole proprietors of ancient, secret knowledge. Students would pay for years, decades even, to slowly climb the ladder and be initiated into the deeper mysteries of the art. It was a system that rewarded loyalty and punished dissent. Then Bruce Lee comes along and basically tells everyone the emperor has no clothes. He's teaching non-Chinese students the secrets of Kung Fu. He's openly criticizing established masters, and worst of all, he's telling people to think for themselves, to mix and match techniques, to abandon the very idea of a pure style. This was a direct threat to the power structure and the financial interests of the old guard. They saw him not as a reformer, but as a heretic, a traitor who was disrespecting their culture and devaluing their life's work. The resistance was immediate and it was fierce. The pushback came in many forms. There were public challenges and private threats. The infamous fight with Wong Jackman was allegedly born from this conflict, a duel to decide whether Lee had the right to teach his modified art to outsiders. Sifus and senseis would badmouth him to their students, calling him a showman, a braggart who only knew street fighting and lacked the deep spiritual understanding of a true martial art. They clung to their forms, their katas, arguing that these choreographed sequences contained the hidden essence of combat, an essence that a brute like Lee could never comprehend. They were defending their identity. For these masters, their style, their identity. It was more than just a set of techniques. It was a connection to their ancestors, their culture, their history. To suggest that it was flawed or incomplete was a deep personal insult. They were invested in the dogma. So, what specific things did Bruce Lee point to as fake or, ineffective? He wasn't just making vague criticisms. He was surgical in his deconstruction of what he called the classical mess. One of his biggest targets was the dead, static patterns known as forms, katas. In many traditional schools, students spend years against an imaginary opponent. The theory is that these forms contain the secrets of the art, but Lee saw it as a trap. He argued that you're just memorizing a dance. An opponent isn't going to attack you in a predictable sequence. Another major issue he had was with unrealistic blocking techniques. Think about the classic rigid blocks. A hard, bone-on-bone block against a full power punch. First, it's slow. Second, even if you land the block, you're still absorbing a massive amount of impact. You might break your arm blocking a punch. His solution was interception and redirection. Soft deflections, parries, simultaneous block and strikes. Don't stop the force. Guide it past you while you deliver your own attack. It's smarter, it's faster, it keeps you from getting wrecked. He also called out the impractical stances. Many traditional styles have deep, low stances, and they do if you're just standing still. But in a real fight, these low-rooted stances are basically a death sentence. They kill your mobility. You can't advance, retreat, circle out quickly. Lee advocated for a more mobile, alive stance, much like a boxer's stance, a fencer's stance. He called it the on-guard position. Balanced, relaxed, ready to explode in any direction at a moment's notice. It's about being a coiled spring, not a rooted tree. Finally, he ripped into the whole idea of style-specific attacks and defenses. What happens when a karate man runs into a wrestler who shoots for a takedown? He's completely lost. He has no frame of reference, no tools to deal with that threat. Lee's point was that you have to train for all possibilities, for all ranges of combat. Kicking, punching, trapping, grappling. Anything less was a dangerous and honestly fraudulent fantasy. Bruce Lee's impact wasn't just about new techniques. It was a fundamental shift in mindset. He essentially forced the martial arts community to get honest with itself. His relentless focus on what works acted like a powerful disinfectant, exposing the fake and fraudulent claims that had been allowed to fester for decades. He championed the idea of pressure testing. It's not enough for a technique to look cool or sound good in theory. You have to try it against a resisting opponent. You have to spar. This demand for realism naturally led to the explosion of cross-training. The walls between styles, once so rigid and impenetrable, started to crumble. The question was no longer what style do you do, but what tools do you have? This was the death of the martial arts fantasy. For too long, death touch, no touch knockout, absorb any blow. These were charlatans selling snake oil. Bruce Lee's philosophy, with its emphasis on science, physics, and practical application, provided the intellectual ammunition to call out this nonsense. He showed that fighting was governed by timing, distance, and leverage, not by magic or mystical energy. He brought a healthy dose of skepticism. The result was a great unveiling. Martial artists were forced to look in the mirror. Is what I'm practicing a living, breathing combat art, or is it a dead relic? Am I training to fight, or am I just going through the motions? This process was painful for many, but it was absolutely necessary. It separated the effective from the theatrical, the real from the fake. Lee didn't give people a new style to follow blindly. He gave them a method to find the truth for themselves. He empowered the individual to become their own investigator in the science of human combat. If you want to see the living, breathing embodiment of Bruce Lee's philosophy, just watch a modern mixed martial arts fight. The UFC, MMA as a whole, is the ultimate laboratory for what works in combat. Lock two highly trained athletes in a cage with minimal rules, and the truth comes out real fast. No flowery, ineffective techniques, no dogma or style loyalty. Only what lets you dominate matters. Think about a modern MMA fighter. Not a karate guy, not a wrestler, not a boxer, a fighter, proficient in all ranges, striking of a boxer, Muay Thai clinch, takedowns of a wrestler, submissions, ground control, absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, be brilliant everywhere or be exposed. The cage is the ultimate lie detector. Lee preached this in the 60s and 70s before the UFC. He talked about combining ranges in the transition from kicking to punching to trapping to grappling. He was a pioneer. Students wearing protective gear and sparring with very few rules, simulating chaos. People thought he was crazy. He was building a testing ground, a prototype for MMA. To be complete, you must be comfortable everywhere. MMA evolution proves it. Early UFC style versus style, sumo versus savate, boxer versus jiu-jitsu. Royce Gracie dominated. Ground game ruled. The system adapted. Everyone learned grappling. Then wrestling and takedown defense rose. The sport keeps evolving just as Lee predicted. A living, breathing application of his philosophy on the biggest stage. The ultimate vindication of his life's work. So, did Bruce Lee just wipe traditional martial arts off the map? Not at all. That's too simple. What he did was force them to evolve or die. The smart ones saw the writing on the wall. They realized they couldn't just keep doing things the old way. They had to adapt to this new landscape of realism that Lee had ushered in. The result has been a quiet reformation, full contact sparring. Kyokushin respected. Kenpo adding alive drills. Even some kung fu lineages added alive drills. They put on gloves and headgear and actually pressure test their bridging kata and fight, plus modern strength and conditioning, cardio, and plyometrics. A direct influence from Lee, who was a fanatic about physical conditioning. But this adaptation comes with a debate. Are these styles still traditional? When a kung fu school starts incorporating boxing drills and jiu-jitsu ground fighting, is it still kung fu? Some purists say no. Others argue it's the only way to remain relevant. So what's the final verdict? Did Bruce Lee destroy traditional martial arts, or did he reform them? It's not a simple yes or no. In a way, he did both. He absolutely destroyed the illusion. He exposed the fraudulent masters, ineffective, overly ornate techniques. He took a wrecking ball to the dogma. For those unwilling to adapt, it was pure destruction. But for the martial arts world as a whole, his impact was radical, necessary reformation, like a controlled forest fire, making way for stronger growth. He forced an entire generation of martial artists to be honest. He modernized the conversation around combat by introducing concepts like cross-training, alive drilling, and the importance of physical attributes. He gave martial arts a path forward into the modern world. He didn't kill the arts, he gave them an inoculation of truth that saved them from irrelevance. His true legacy, the core of his contribution, was forcing honesty about what is real and what is fake. He wasn't anti-tradition, he was anti-dogma. He had deep respect for the roots of martial arts, but zero tolerance for things that didn't work. The value of traditional arts still exists, of course. They offer incredible benefits in discipline, cultural connection, mental focus, and physical health. But Lee forced us to separate those benefits from the claim of pure combat effectiveness. You can practice Tai Chi for its health benefits, and that's amazing. But don't tell yourself you're ready to step into a cage with a trained killer. This brings us to the big question for the future. How do we continue to blend tradition and progress? How do we honor the cultural and philosophical depth of the old ways while relentlessly pursuing what is functionally true? The challenge is to maintain that brutal honesty that Lee championed, to constantly be on guard against the resurgence of fake martial arts and ineffective methods that prey on the naive. Bruce Lee wasn't an endpoint, he was a turning point. He was the man who held up a mirror to the world of combat and forced it for the first time to see its true reflection. To support the channel, comment, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. To receive notifications about future content, select the post notification bell. If you want to stay with me, choose a video on your screen and we will see you there. Thank you.